Hi, we hope that you are enjoying Animation in Black. We have been having a great time here in San Antonio and also presenting our wonderful offerings of the festival online around the World Wide Web. We have been doing profiles of different animation studios and companies, production companies, and concept studios in different parts of the world. And so now we are going to move to the island of Jamaica. And we are bringing in, I'm going to kind of bring everybody into the stream. Oh, come on. I'm like TDing and doing everything at one time. So we got to move. Okay, there we go. There we go. So what I'm going to do, I want to welcome you all to SABIFF 2022 Animation in Black. So what I'm going to do, I started off a conversation with Nadine at the far right, the top of the screen, and we just started a conversation through email, and she pulled together this wonderful group of creatives in Jamaica, and we're going to be talking to everybody. But Nadine, I'm going to first start with you. I'm gonna let you all do their own intros because I hate when people are reading a long intro and people are like waiting. I usually like to let folks come on and introduce themselves and talk about their company and we can go from there. Okay. So let's start with you, Nadine. So tell us who you are and the company you represent.
Certainly. Okay, so my name is Nadine Rawlins, and I am the president of Women in Film and Television Association Jamaica, the Jamaica chapter. I'm also a filmmaker here in Jamaica, and I run a production company and a talent management company here in Jamaica. We do casting both regionally and internationally.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So we're going to get into that in a minute, but let's go to, let me get the next one. Okay, wait a minute. There we go. Okay. Let's go to Kenya. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm Kenya Mattis. I'm a founder of Listen Me Caribbean. We are a storytelling company, an award-winning storytelling company that's based in Jamaica. And we develop animations, podcasts, interactive products that inspire, entertain, and bring people closer. We really believe in the power of telling stories that connect with people. So one of our passions being, animating kids and family entertainment projects really is makes an exciting time now to be in this space in the Caribbean. There's so much that's going on. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about that today.
Wonderful. Okay, and let's go to Adrian Lopez.
Hi, my name is Adrian Lopez. My company is Liquid Light Digital. We specialize in live action and film visual effects and animation. We've been around since 2002, and we've been doing this with a real passion for quite a long time. I think probably the longest existing animation company in Jamaica right now.
Mm-hmm. And you're based in Kenya, right? I mean,
no, we're based in Jamaica. Right? From Kenya.
Yes. So you're from Kenya, but you're based in Kingston, right?
Right.
I gotta ask everybody's base. Okay, so we're gonna talk about Liquid Light. And Kevin, you're up.
Yes, I'm Kevin Jackson, and I am the former president of the Jamaica Animation Nation Network, which is an association for animators in Jamaica. And I work with Night Vision Media, which is an animation studio in Jamaica. We've done several award-winning animations and commercials, and mostly those commercials center around what do you call them, like environmental causes and other what you call it, public service type announcements.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Nadine, thank you. You've put together quite a panel here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, just get them together. And so basically, is everybody in Kingston proper, in the Kingston area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because Jamaica is so spread out. So when you talk about women in film and video, how is the connection? Is it in Montego and I mean, how is that coming together? Is it all virtual at this point now?
Okay, well, all of us here on this panel, we're in Kingston, Jamaica, which is the capital of Jamaica. So we have two capitals. So we have Montego Bay and we have Kingston. To answer your question about the landscape of the film industry in Jamaica, I would say over the past 10 years, we have really seen tremendous growth in the industry. We have seen Jamaica Film and Television Association, which is a local television association with membership of, I would believe, I don't know, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, about almost 100 people. And most recently, we have Women in Film and Television Association, Women in Film and Television International, the Jamaica chapter, that reconvened about 3 years ago with about 15 members strong. And so we've really seen an increase in membership or involvement in the industry. I know Kevin and Kenya and Adrian can speak about the animation aspect of it, but we reach as far as Montego Bay because we have actually a member of our association who lives in Montego Bay, which is on the other side of the island.
Right.
So we've really seen some growth over. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this. It was since COVID, because COVID has really, removed the borders. To say, if to understand what I mean. So people are more connected because we can reach out on the internet over Zoom, and here we are on a stream speaking about what we do. So we've really seen that increase since, I'd say, most recently since COVID in terms of involvement in this industry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine. So I mean, I don't want to just be like asking questions and y'all answer. Y'all can jump in when you want. But what I want to start off with, I think that for me, wanting to do this festival and even wanting to interview or profile you all is because as I was saying earlier, everybody's in their own little world, in their country, in their neighborhood, in their tribe, whatever. And people aren't really connecting, people of African descent aren't really connecting to what other people are doing in the industry. And, we deal with a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion issues here. So, I mean, how does that play out in Jamaica on the island? How does that play out in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, in terms of balancing Black people of color getting into fields of animation and production? Not all at once.
I was going to say that. I mean, certainly for us, I was about to say, for us, I mean, for us at Listen Me, and I think for us on the panel and for wider Jamaica, inclusion, first of all, the motto of Jamaica is out of many, one people. And you would find that as a predominantly Black country, we have been talking for a long time about our historical and traditional icons and how many stories we have to tell as Black people here in Jamaica and in the wider Caribbean as well. And we're also very connected to our counterparts in Trinidad, in Barbados, in other countries that have persons of, Indian or Asian descent. So what we're finding is that the cultural mix of stories tends to be very inclusive because our identity is wrapped up in this multifaceted culture that spans, from, I would definitely say at least from the 1600s to now. There have been so many stories that sort of connect through various people who have come. So what we're seeing is that there's so many present and modern day stories. Like we, for instance, just did a trailer for a short that we're working on, a short film. That is a historical story. It's called Lover's Leap. I'm so excited about it. And this is a traditional story of two slaves whose love was forbidden on the plantation. And now we're getting to sort of tell these stories ourselves and see them come alive on screen. Kevin, you have also told, cultural stories as well.
So is that going to be an animated story or drama?
Yes. Yes, it's going to be an animated 20-minute short, and we had just finished the sizzle reel for it. So we're seeing that, I think people of our generation are now taking hold of all of these cultural gems and are now animating them and bringing them to life.
Yeah. So how did that come about? What's this guy you got? Look, now I'm like interest peaked.
So it was serendipity because so the writer director is actually Alric Brown, who is of Jamaican descent. He is based in New York because he's a professor at the New York University there. Through a visit to Jamaica, we got to talking once, and I told him about this lore, this legend of Lover's Leap, these two lovers who, I won't give away the ending of it, but the name of it kind of does that as well. And he was so intrigued, he did some research, and then we just started working on the project. And so our studio decided to produce the project while he would write and direct.
Wait a minute, is that location in Jamaica that I've been?
Yes, in St. Elizabeth.
There's a tale. I didn't know the whole tale, but I know it was a lover. Two lovers end up dying.
Lovers who. Okay. Since you know it, it's two lovers. Who,
I've been there. I've been to that location.
It's an
beautiful.
amazing, magical location. Exactly, where two lovers they basically chose love over oppression, and they leapt to their death to be together instead of being forced to be separated on the plantation where they were enslaved at the time.
Oh my
God!
To see that animation will be beautiful.
Yes, I'm really excited about that.
Because I don't even know how you could tell that story. Well, I guess you could tell it, real life, but I mean, the animation part could be really beautiful. Because I'm just thinking about the tropics around and the beautiful landscape, and then, wow.
I'll share the link with you. It's definitely projects like those really excite us because it's culture, it's inclusive, it's diverse, and these are untold stories I think the world definitely deserves to hear about.
Yeah. So I want to. It's like when you're working on something like that, how does the broader world get a chance to come into the fold and experience, Jamaican culture in the form of animation or production? Are things on YouTube or things? How are we getting it out?
So because this was literally just done last week, so this is very, very.
Hot off the press!
I should probably have told the team I was going to talk about it here. But if you go to loversleapanimation.com, that is the website, and there is a YouTube link to the short that we had just done, just to kind of showcase what this project can look like. And for anyone who wants to visit that website, loversleapanimation.com, and be a part of helping us to finish the film, basically, because animation, we should talk about that, is not a cheap venture, especially for a 20-minute film. Right. So we're still looking to finish up fundraising for it so that we can get the entire project out there.
Loversleep.com.
Yeah.
See, that's something we're getting out. That is awesome. I look forward to that. Okay, so Mr. Adrian, I was looking at your bio and stuff, and I'm like, this brother done been all around the world in 50 days, and he ended up in Jamaica. Okay, from Kenya born.
Yeah, born in Kenya.
Educated Canada, U.S., and you just wanted to go. I mean, what's your story in terms of how you got into animation and just your experiences in these various parts of the world? I think that's wonderful that you take it home.
Yeah, well, it was diverse. I mean, the main reason we came back, my mother's Jamaican, so the plan was always to come back and settle in Jamaica. That was the family plan. So my father he was born in Kenya. He was Portuguese by birth, but he was born in Kenya. And then we went to he went all over the world for his studies. He got his PhD at Purdue University in the States. And then we came back here. He started a veterinary practice. My mother started a health food company, and I started getting into business. So we started managing her health food business, and then I went away to university, studied business, came back. While I was over there, I started playing around with animation. I met a guy at K2 Communications and apprenticed with him for a while, but I was still studying my marketing degree. I spoke to my parents. I said, "Hey, this animation thing looks interesting." I said, "Yeah, well, don't even think about that. Just stick with the business degree, and then you can worry about that afterwards." All right, okay, fine. So I finished the degree, came back, and started working at Red Stripe, with the Red Stripe beer company here.
I love Red Stripe.
At the Red Stripe,
years now.
But the whole corporate life thing didn't appeal to me. I started doing animation on the side, and after a while, I was making more money at that than I was at my full-time job. So I quit, started Liquid Light, and that was in 2002.
Yeah, but how did you get into animation? I mean, that's
it's always been a passion of mine. Even in high school, I used to draw animations in the corner of my biology book and flip through them. That was just like the thing I did all the time. I was always animating, always drawing, sketching, and I was always drawn to it. Animation and visual effects. That's always been a thing for me.
Okay, so that was just kind of in you. You were trying to call prodigy waiting to explode.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah. And then we got into storytelling, and then Jamaica has such a rich culture of stories. We've got one story that we're taking to BFI in London next month. which is actually based. And it's so funny right now. This whole thing about the Little Mermaid, and so many people thinking that mermaids are never black, and we have a River Mama mermaid character in Jamaican folklore that's been around for hundreds of years.
Wow.
And
Yep.
the story is about exactly that. It's about this River Mama, how she came to here, the whole story between her and the slaves. It's called All That Glitters, and we're taking the script to BFI next month.
And see, that's why it's important to talk. That's why it's important to talk to people all over the world, because like here they're making a big ass deal over that. I mean, like craziness. And it's like it ain't no thing. It's been happening in Jamaica.
And they're applying all.
And what's even more shocking to me,
you can't have black skin on the water. It's like, really? What are you talking about? No blackfish? Come on. It's ridiculous.
Oh boy. Exactly.
So what were you gonna say,
Exactly.
Kevin?
And not to mention, mermaids do have African origins. You know, if you check Ghanaian history, if you check New Guinea, Nigeria, they have, you know, mermaids in that culture. They call them Mama Water. You know, you can and that's been around for hundreds of years, long before you know, Little Mermaid.
That's where River Mama from, because our mermaid came from Africa.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't know where the hell mermaids came from. I thought that was just all fiction, fable stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of. Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say there's a lot of like mixing of cultures, even in terms of the origin of those stories. But I would say that in terms of there being gods, and her role wasn't just this creature living in the sea or in the river. She was the protector or the guardian of the water. So she has a role in that culture, in terms of the preservation of nature as well. So that the reverence toward that type of a figure, I think maybe lost a bit in modern folklore. So we're hoping that we can see more of that brought in.
Well, one thing about US, it not only get lost, it gets taken over and reconstructed.
But you know,
person's point of view. What's that, Nadine?
It's about the whole River Mama, Black Mermaid. It's through the lens of Hollywood, you know, and through that lens. And the thing is, like in Jamaica, as you know, I don't look a day over 25, but
of course not.
Of course. But you know, growing up, we've always looked to Hollywood for, you know, their vision of what storytelling is when it comes to cinema and television. You know, so we see that all the time. So we would see a white mermaid. And I remember recently when I just finished a short film with 3 other filmmakers, a part of the JAFTA Propeller, and one of the projects is an animation. And I was telling some colleagues of mine in Europe that, you know, we have animators in Jamaica, and they were blown away that we have persons in Jamaica that does animation. You know what I mean? Because, you know, people see Jamaica as, you know, sand, sea, sun, reggae music, Usain Bolt. Yes, now we have, you know, people coming here and doing more films, and now they're, you know, we're opening up what we do. We not only go by the river and swim and go to the sea and smoke or whatever, but we have creatives here who can produce animation and tell real stories that connect with us. And so, you know, I applaud, you know, Kenya and Adrian and Kevin for really, you know, stepping out. Like, you know, Adrian is going to BFI to talk about his project as an animator. So it's so important what you're doing here to say, listen, you have Jamaicans. We're not only filmmakers, but we do animation. And thank you so much for allowing us this platform to talk to the world about this, because it's so important. It's so necessary.
Yeah, well, thank you for putting together this awesome panel. I appreciate it. So, Kevin, what is your story, my brother?
Oh boy, my story.
Pro Animations.
It's an interesting story, but not untypical in Jamaica. You know, when I was growing up, I was all into art. Like Adrian, I used to draw, you know, flipbook animations in the corner of my exercise books, draw characters, and you know, stuff like that. But the thing is that Jamaica's always had this culture of, you know, being creative is a hobby, or being creative is just something you do for fun. It's not a career that you aspire towards. And so I was always kind of hit.
A lawyer.
Right. So I was always kind of hit with roadblocks, you know, along the way, you know. your teacher spanking you for drawing in your book when you should be doing, whatever sentences or whatever it is
What
that
about a
they tell you to
spanking,
do.
Kevin?
Yeah. Like when I would draw, I would get lost in the world and not even realize that the teacher's, like right over my head
Over you.
looking at me while I'm, And, even in high school, we hit a point where they were like, okay, you have to choose your subjects now. So you either have to choose the sciences or the arts or business. And I was like, I kind of want to do a mix of everything. And like everybody kind of just advised me towards the sciences. I was like, all right. And went to university, did computer science and electronics, did programming for about 15 years or so. And then what ended up happening was I just didn't like my job, just like Adrian. I've just been coding and going, this is just a very mindless experience for me, right? It's just not me. And I like telling stories, so I got into writing and then got into film. And I had been seeing things about animation here and there. I had gone to a talk at the university when I was there, like maybe in my final year, and I saw Adrian doing a presentation. This was like, I think I heard about the presentation in a newspaper. And I was like, wait, there's somebody here do animations. I need to go to this lecture. And I remember him presenting his animation. I was like, wow, that's so cool. Still didn't think that it was something that I could do because I just kept thinking, well, I can't afford the money to go to school abroad. And then the government and the Canadian embassy, they brought down a company called Toon Boom to Jamaica, where they were basically trying to start an animation industry here. So the Jamaican government and the Canadian High Commission, they brought down a company called Toon Boom, which is an animation software company, and they were trying to encourage us to start an animation industry. And when I went to that meeting and they were talking about how easy animation is to do now with all the software that's out there, I thought, hey, I could put my drawing skills back into use, try to get back into, drawing and probably do this. And of course, my first attempt, I realized, yeah, they were lying. It's not easy, even with the software. It's not easy. But I did like it and I just stuck to it and I just kept on, practicing and practicing until eventually someone messaged me on Facebook because I used to post my animations on Facebook and they were like, hey, someone's looking for an animator. And my first thought was, all right, let me go find them an animator. And they were just like, aren't you an animator? I was like, I'm learning to animate. I'm like, and they're just like, well, I mean, don't count yourself out. You should probably still go and, show them what you can do. And I was like, oh, I guess. And I did. They liked my portfolio. And then I got that first gig. And that gig led to many other gigs. And I just grew an intense passion for animation, eventually joined the Animation Association and became the president and just trying my best to, try to get Jamaica to a point where we can call animation a career and stop passing it off as a hobby. So
And
that's my story.
so you raise a very, very good point because all of the I've talked to different African countries profiles that I've done, Uganda and Kenya, and that was one of the things mentioned is that their parents didn't have a connection or understanding about animation. It was like kids play. It was like, not serious. You had to be a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever in order to your schooling. So how did you all come into your own, really come into your own, or who encouraged you or pushed you forward to go beyond that mindset that, this is not a serious thing. This is not a career. How did you all break into going into production and animation, uh, to find your way?
Well, my story is a little bit different from Kevin's and Adrian's in that I am not an animator. And I've always been a fan of art, but Kevin, I would never try to draw to go back into animation. Instead, actually, my mom was a radio broadcaster. She was a DJ. And she's been in media production for a very long time. And I
Oh
actually
wow.
really took to it as well. And I started by being a voice talent on radio ads. And then it's eventually, led into me producing my own radio ads as well, and working. And my background is in music, so I learned piano as a child, and I studied that. But I was always a fan of cartoons growing up. Like, I would always be watching on TV ads and cartoons. Everything else I would lose interest. It just so happened that as an adult, that's exactly what my line of business is in. And so when we started the company, we started as an audio production company, producing, storybooks, audiobooks, podcasts, with always the intention of telling stories at the core. We just sort of evolved into then adding, oh, let's see, if we were to illustrate that it's a graphic novel, how would it look? Okay, well, let's try animating it. How would that work? And so we sort of took our time to build into that era. I was working a full-time job as a marketing manager at the time. And I think my mom had faith that whatever I would do, I would just do it to the best of my ability. And because she was also into production, it was a time at which, if you're going to bet on yourself, just do it and just go 100% into it. Because luckily for me, my family always felt like they had my back. Always felt like, even if it were to fail, which I had no idea whether it would or would not, I won't starve. The mango tree will have mango, the ackee tree will have ackee. We'll figure it out. And so it was at least having that confidence that, if I'm going to bet on myself, now is the time to do it. That I decided to just try, and then sort of evolve into now a stage where I've been using the skills that I have to work in an industry which is very new to a lot of us here. So even though I'm not an animator, I've been writing, doing the audio, producing, coordinating, wrangling in ways that sort of support the animation team. And so I've been called the glue of many projects, even though I'm not the traditional animator. So I think that the important lesson or takeaway for me is that there's a role, for everyone in the process.
Right. Anybody else had any influences or somebody that really gave you the encouragement to move towards your goals or your dreams to be in production or animation in general?
I can't say that there was anybody specifically because, for me, and just to be clear, it wasn't my parents that were dissuading me from doing art. They had always recognized my talent, but it was more school advisors were just kind of like, oh, it's the kids that are not so smart that go to art, and then the kids that are smart that go to the sciences and business and that sort of thing. And I kind of always got that advice along the way. But for me, what motivated me was like just reading a lot of motivational books about, going after your goals and finding your true self, and just meeting a lot of people along the way. Because even when I started writing and I was like, man, I really want to get into the film industry because I enjoy writing and I want to tell these stories visually. I had no idea where to turn. Looking through the directory, I saw a lot of video production companies. I didn't see any film companies. So, calling them up, they were just like, oh, well, yeah, we do weddings and we do, events. None of us do film. And I remember starting a Facebook page called Jamaica Film Industry, thinking, all right, if I start this page, maybe people will see it, because Facebook was just opening up at the time. I was like, maybe they'll see it and the professionals will join it, and then I'll be able to connect with them. That didn't happen initially. And it wasn't until Reggae Film Festival that Barbara Blake kind of put on. There was a film that won, and there was a lot of controversy around it. Right? And Barbara Blake, Hannah, she was definitely someone who inspired a lot of us who couldn't find our way. She would introduce us. I remember she introduced me to Chris Brownie, who is a big filmmaker here, and he was very, very receptive to my writing. So that was definitely encouragement that brought me up to another level. And after that film that had shown at her festival caused a lot of people to join the Facebook group to argue about the film, that was how I was able to connect. Because I was like, oh, wow, all these professionals are now joining. Awesome. And I remember because I would constantly be posting the stuff that I was learning about film, a lady named Tanya Taylor, who's a producer who operates between Jamaica and New York, she saw me, constantly, trying to learn this stuff. And then she recruited me to be a PA on America's Next Top Model Cycle 19, which was shot here. And then that was like, put it this way, if film was a vampire. Being on the set of America's Next Top Model was me being bitten and transforming into a vampire because I was just like, yep, this is what I need to do with my life. I remember we in Jamaica we get 2 weeks or 10 days vacation. I literally took my entire vacation that year to be on that set, and people were like,
Wow.
"You took your vacation to work?" And I was like, "It's not work to me. I actually enjoy being here. Like this is not work." And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
after being on that set, I was like, okay, by this age, I need to be out of corporate or or bust. And I just
Mm,
worked really hard at getting out of corporate at that point. And
mm.
jumping ship was more a case of I think I got fired. And then when I got fired, I was just like, well,
Yes.
now is the time to do it if there is any time to do it. So I gave myself like a year to kind of get properly into the film and animation industry. And so far since 2016, I have not worked in corporate, and I'm very happy I did it. Glad
And
somebody fired me.
no, no, that story is so typical and so important to tell. Typical in that there are so many people that in jobs and work that they hate that are not pursuing their passions.
Yeah.
So for you to jump ship and to,
Yeah, man.
swim,
I
to
was
swim.
afraid to leave.
Oh yeah,
I
everybody,
was
yeah,
afraid to leave. Believe me. Every year I was like, I'm gonna stop working this year. I'm gonna stop, and it just never happened. And it wasn't until I was fired, and I was like, well, I don't have any excuse now. So
yeah,
That was a
yeah.
sign.
Yes, yes, we have to pay attention to the signs. We have to. So Adrian, so let's talk a little. I want to hear about your company, Liquid Light Digital. First of all, where'd the name come from? How did you come up with the name? And how did you get that started in Jamaica, and what are some of the things you all are doing?
Well, originally the name was Liquid Light and Magic, and then someone said, that sounds a lot like Industrial Light and Magic. I said, well, that's the point, but I thought it was a bit too derivative, so we just made it Liquid Light Digital, mainly because we just saw the light on the screen as being something that's very malleable and fluid that we want to be able to have control over. So that's where the name of the company came from. And we've been, like I said, we've been specializing mainly in 3D animation and visual effects, aside from our live action production. And there are examples of that on the demo reel that we sent you. And we've been getting more recently into narrative production. So we're working on converting a children's book right now called Talisman into an animated story. We've got 2 feature films that we're working on, and 2 children's television series.
So what does your team consist of in terms of you have an ongoing team, or are you
We
freelancers?
have a core team of about 4 of us, and then we freelance out everything else. It's hard to find consistent animation talent here in Jamaica. We have a lot of animators, but because they're doing their full-time job otherwise, sometimes you can't always depend on them. So you need to have backup people and backup freelancers who are gonna fill in if that person disappears for a weekend and you got a deadline on Monday. You need someone else that you can call on who you know is going to be able to pull through. So I would say we have about a core of 4 to 5 main people, writers, concept artists, background artists, and then we have about 20 to 30 freelancers that we work with.
So freelancers, you got to do like Kevin and jump ship or get fired
right.
to do this full time. It'll work. It'll work out. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna definitely roll the reel. But I was wondering, is there any because you said it's hard to find people that are not working full-time jobs because they're doing what they're doing, but is there an apprenticeship or training that allows for consistency to create and develop animators on the island? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, there are a couple of institutes that are offering animation training, and I think Kevin would better speak to this. But Kevin knows my sore point on this. I feel like a lot of people who are graduating out of these programs are not really quite up to scratch from a production standpoint. So they'll come in, we'll give them an animation test, and they can't manage it. So what the model that we're looking at doing, and we're working with the Branson Institute on this, is to develop an academy within the organization where we train them on our workflows and we train them coming right up. That's the model that India used. back in the 70s and 80s to get their animation workforce going. They didn't have animation schools. They had production companies that trained. They would have artistic tests that they'd have people take when they were entering their organization, and then they would train them up as animators within the organization, as opposed to them going to schools, being trained by people that you don't know if they're qualified to be doing the training, and coming out and they're not really that good at what they're supposed to be doing. It's frustrating for us. And I think one of the problems that we had when Toon Boom came down is that they sort of created this impression with the government that, hey, it's a quick thing. You're gonna have an animation industry in 6 months, and it didn't work out that way, because when it comes down to it, it's really a numbers game. We have a lot of talented people in Jamaica. We don't have the sheer number of people. When you're competing with like the Philippines or 25 million people, and you've got 2.5 million here, you're not going to have that many animators to draw on. It's just the numbers. We just don't have it, and that's our biggest problem.
Wow. Well, Kevin, can you speak to that as the president of the animation association there, in terms of?
Sure. Well,
I think that's a great model to pull from the Indian model that you spoke of, Adrian.
yeah, no, it is. It definitely is a great model, and I mean, it's been something that has been, said to the Jamaican government and the institutions out here that there needs to be some kind of model where people are trained in the studio, preferably not on the dime of the studio, because that wouldn't make any sense. The studio is there to do productions. If they're spending money to train people and distracting from their productions, that in itself causes a problem. So there does need to be some kind of funding in place to fuel these apprenticeships, so to speak. Like Adrian said, there are institutions here that train people in animation, and there are definitely challenges. He's not wrong about that. I do believe that a lot of talented people do come out of these institutions, but it's not the majority of them. So if 100 people graduate, you're not getting 100 top-notch animators. You may not even be getting 70 or 60 or 50 or whatever the case is. And I think it definitely has to do a lot with it's a multi-pronged thing. There's the fact that the selection criteria for the students, in my opinion, for some of these institutions need to change. If you look at the selection criteria for the universities abroad, it's difficult to get into an animation school, right? You don't just go, oh, I want to be in an animation school, let me pay my money and get in. They ask you for your portfolio first. And if your portfolio is not up to scratch, then chances are they're not going to bring you in, because the thing is, it's not that the curriculum is very different. Persons from Canada, persons from the US, persons from Korea have been here and have talked to all the different universities about their curriculum. The challenge comes in where, on one hand, in a university abroad, when you come in, you're expected to work. You're expected to put in a lot of work, and if your talent isn't up to scratch, that work is going to flunk a lot of people. And I do believe in some cases, sometimes the institutions might go easy on the students, to try and help them to cope, but that's not really doing them any favors.
Right.
And you see the result of that. Then on top of it, there isn't a standardization in terms of, the software that they use, the assignments that they're producing, or the pieces of work that they're producing, etc. There are a lot of little things that just, I think, could be improved on. But there are definitely some good talent coming out of the universities. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Kenya can correct me. I believe there are 2 persons who graduated from UWI that work at Listen Me. I've met quite a few talented people from UTech. I've been in some training programs with some really talented 3D animators. But of course, with some of the government training programs that have been put on, because the government has also put on some short training programs to help bring people up to a certain level. My biggest challenge with those, as much as I really, really appreciate them, is that you're bringing these persons from Canada, US, Ireland, Korea to train us for 3 months in animation, when they probably spent 3 years becoming an animator and spent another 10 years becoming really good at it. And you expect them to teach us in 3 months to be
Right,
capable.
right,
And that's
right,
unrealistic, you know. So you
right.
get very strange results, you know.
Mm.
I mean,
No,
the model that
go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say that the model that we've had to use at Listen Made, which has borne some success, to make reference to what Kevin is saying, is that we signed an MOU with CARIMAC, which is one of the divisions at a local university that produces animators. To say, listen, we will work with your graduates to see how it is that we can introduce them to working on a pipeline, because for a lot of them it is just the experience of working on a production that they need to kind of figure out how exactly it works. And as Kevin rightfully said, one of
Yeah.
them now is our assistant creative director, because she's an amazing talent. She has the vision and the insight, and just her
Mm,
experience working on projects. I can let her alone to basically run projects now. So
mhm.
our approach is really to help to build a creative collective. That's what we call them. Of not just animators, but we need other persons as well
Production.
in the exactly an entire production pipeline, from supervisors to editors to even voice talent or writers,
Writers, yeah.
and pulling them all together to work on projects. And it's just through repetition and experience that I see them improve over time. So we start with
Mhm,
smaller projects to
mhm.
the point now where we're working on our very first feature film with people who have 5 years ago they had no idea that this is something that they would be able to do in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ada, I'd like to jump in here. I mean, I know you're moderating. I mean, I'm not
No,
a
no, go ahead.
I'm not a
I was gonna,
facilitator by any means.
no,
I
no, go ahead.
my drawing experience is stick man, but being a part of an association of members, one of the cry we would hear is how can I develop my skill as a filmmaker, as an artist, as an entertainment.
Especially as a woman.
Okay, then that's
Mhm.
another conversation.
Right. Mhm.
But earlier on in the conversation, you spoke about diversity and how we address that here. And I think Kenya addressed it. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the issues that we have in Jamaica is not a racist issue. It's more on a classist, if you will.
Right.
You have rich and you have poor. Let's
Mhm.
call it what it is in
Mhm.
Access
our
to
country.
resources.
Exactly. And so to be an animator, to be a filmmaker, a lot of people look on this business as, oh, you have to have money to do that. We
Mhm.
hear Kevin and we hear Adrian and Kenya speak about people who went to CARIMAC, which is a university here, to study it. And, you do it for years. It's so expensive. So what I want to
Mhm.
know from not the animators, the producers in the room. I mean,
Mhm.
what are we doing in terms of educating, bringing attention to the industry of, and specifically animation to the younger generations, the one who really can't afford it. They watch cartoons and they like what they see, and they're the young Kevins and the young Adrians drawing in the side of their books, but
Mhm.
they don't have the mommy and daddy don't have the money to do it. Are we looking at developmental programs where we can go into schools? Because I said earlier that over the past 10 years, as recent as 3 years, we've seen a big increase in this industry. But I
Mhm.
mean, are you guys looking at ways we can do more for the younger generation coming in?
Good
Mm.
question.
Yeah, we have been looking at
Yeah.
that. We've been
Yeah.
when we're working with the Branson Institute, we have been looking at ways specifically to engage the youth and how to get them to use their smartphones,
Ah,
because they're using the smartphones right now, and those are perfectly
Yeah.
valid animation devices to produce all kinds of different.
Exactly.
And sure, maybe you can't produce a feature film on it, but you can put animation. You can do animations on it that you can post to places and get noticed. But people are a
Right.
lot of these kids don't realize that the smartphone can be used for that. They're using it for all just taking pictures and posting, but they can be doing a lot more with them. And that's the
Yes.
most
Yes.
pervasive device available to them. So the parents
Yeah.
maybe can't afford a high powered PC, but they've given them an Android phone, and that's
Mhm.
perfectly capable of doing it. So that's one of the things that we're looking at doing.
okay.
Yeah.
Just to add
And
to go
from
ahead.
my perspective, from the Animation Association, we do go into schools from time to time, high schools, primary schools, But it's mostly been on, for their career days. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to stimulate them to start clubs, that have activities, and we can get members of the animation community to, go in and spend some time with them, helping them to, learn a skill or two to kind of kickstart them into animation, and, put on competitions for them. Because we do believe the earlier we get them started, the better, so that by the time they reach university, they're at a higher level already, and, they can just get higher from there. Beyond that, like Adrian said, it's about letting these kids know that they can do stuff on their smartphones. I'm a part of a WhatsApp group called We Animate JA, which a teacher started for students. So there's students from different schools in there, and they're always practicing their drawing skills, their animation skills. Some of them using their cell phones, some of them using apps they found online, and there are mentors in there that interact with the students, and let them know when they're doing well, give them tips to improve here and there. So we're definitely doing some stuff. It definitely could be on a bigger scale, because there are a lot of high schools and a lot of primary schools in Jamaica. It's very difficult to reach them. And we've tried going through the Ministry of Education, but the Ministry of Education is, they not only are they big, but they have a lot on their plate. You
Have a
call them,
lot
you
of
can barely
priority.
get them. Yeah, you email them, you can't get them. When you do finally get them, the person you've been speaking to has left the organization, and you don't know until a year later when somebody goes, "Oh, that person left." And so it's been difficult to really collaborate with the government on that level. So we're still doing it on this kind of reaching out on our own basis, or people reaching out to us.
If I could just say three things, just that I have seen to address that issue, Nadine. First of all, for those persons who have the motivation to be
Yeah.
self-taught, there are a number of resources on YouTube, a number of online tutorials. If you have a laptop, or as Adrian said, a phone, any device, and there are free software now that you can use to actually just get started in animation. No longer is it gated in terms of you having to pay in order to start,
Exactly.
to have access to software that can produce some actually really cool stuff.
Mhm.
So for that person who may not be a part of a formal institution, who wants to learn on their own, there's sometimes parents call us at the studio. My child is interested in animation. What do they do? I would encourage anyone to
Yep.
play with it first before they pay, to
Right.
figure out if it's
Right.
something that they're interested in. And then if you have the aptitude for it and you can produce some stuff, then people are going to take note.
Right.
Secondly, there is
Yes.
now game design and animation at the CXC level. That's a secondary institution or high school level where you can now study and take that exam. So if it is that you want to learn in school, it is an option that you can actually take that course and study that in high
Oh.
school. That did not exist before 2016. So
Mm.
I think more
Right.
students are looking at that as a space to get, it's not just art, you can now study game design and animation in school. And
Hmm.
thirdly, I'm also a member of the board of the NCB Foundation. That is a national bank that whose foundation is really very interested in creating a digital producer of Jamaica, just increasing the pool of digital producers in Jamaica. And they are now looking at, well, how can we encourage persons to take those CXC subjects, pay for scholarships, pay for those types of studies? So there are institutions that are interested now in paying you to, or giving you money or supporting you along
Hmm.
that journey. No longer is it a space where it's just lawyer, doctor, and internship.
Good.
But
Indian.
you're now finding institutions who are sitting up taking note, and they're willing to support persons to pursue this career.
Wow. No, I mean, I think we were talking before we started streaming for this. Because this just the direction, the way the world has gone, just World Wide Web, just period. You no longer have to wait on anybody to give you
No,
permission to be
Right.
creative,
and
to
the
create
resources
your
are out
art.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're out
like
there.
you said, you have to look and find and search and do. And then you will improve, and things will get better. It will get out there. We have YouTube sensations that we've interviewed on this for say in animation in black, that have started YouTube channels in 220 and are now millions of subscribers. So if you have a passion, if you were born with something, scribbling on a paper like Kevin's done as a little boy, or Adrian's done, there's ways that you can turn that into a lifelong career. You can turn your passion to a career and make good money from it and
And
create
I
it yourself.
I
Yeah.
encourage everyone, Ada, to just start where you are and do what you can with what you have. Because it's when you take that first step that you put something out into the world that people will understand and take note, and then the help and the support that you need will come. But it does begin with you.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so we want to hear about Listen Me.
Listen
Tell
to
us,
me.
Listen Me. Tell us where that back or that name came from. So you guys explain that and what are some of the things you're doing. What I liked about is that you want to produce game-changing work that grows impact. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit
Absolutely.
about that, where that's came from, the name, and what's some things you do.
Absolutely. So we, as I said before, we had started out in audio production. We were actually we were DJing the news back in 2013, where
Yeah, I
the
remember
news
that.
would come on every week, and we would actually turn the news into a song, and we would post that. And you had kids for the first time who'd be like, "Yo, what's going on in the news? What's going on in the news this week?" And so we were always into
I remember
edutainment,
that.
but at the core, what we did was always storytelling. And so, Listen to Me, which is actually a Caribbean call to action, it means pay attention. Is something that we wanted to just emphasize that, listen, we have something to say. And as a voice, we really want to draw people in with the stories that we have to tell. And so that's really where the name Listen to Me came about. And we have evolved from that point of DJing the news and, producing audio stories to now we evolved into doing graphic novels, and then we evolved into now animating projects, not just for companies who you might have commercials, you might have stuff that you want to share with your audience, but also for narrative stories for ourselves. And so one project that we're super excited to be working on is a mini series which we are in. Actually, I think Munia Aram. She told me that she's gonna be.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, she's
I,
coming. She's coming.
she's coming from Jamaica. So yesterday she was just in
Oh
here.
my God, small
Yes,
world.
very
Wow.
small world. And she told me she's going to San Antonio. I was like, I'm on a panel for San Antonio, so hopefully I can be there sometime soon.
Wow.
We're
Wow.
working on this project together called The Adventures of Cam Cam.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I saw on your website. I wanted to hear about CamCam.
Yes. So that's definitely also been a whole journey where we started that having, really no clue what we were doing. And we just wanted to create a short that was based on a story that my sister wrote, actually. And she had written that years ago. Her name is Kamiko. Hi, Kamiko.
Shout
And
out to Kamika.
I know. And we just wanted to tell a story about this little girl who is fearless and who uses music to basically address any challenge that she has in her life, whether on a planet or in space. And so that process had started out, we had won an award at Kingston. We ended up shopping it around at various places. And now we're at a stage where we're working on developing this short. Hopefully it will be released. I will tell you the date soon. I can't tell you that one like I did for Lovers Leap. But it really has been a learning process for us, and an exciting one, because the challenge that we have been set is to produce it with as much Jamaican and Caribbean talent as possible. We want to make it not just inclusive in terms of the storytelling, but also from the production standpoint as well. So it can really be the product of a Caribbean, collective and a Caribbean effort. And we think that that model of including not just experts and senior animators, but people who are just starting out as well, we kind of help persons to grow in the process and the pipeline with all the experience that we've had in producing, projects over the years. And so from a storytelling standpoint, I'm really excited about how we can integrate culture into content and just be represented in terms of the fact that we want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to celebrate who we are with the work that we produce. So Cam Cam is an example of that. Lovers Leap is a living example of that. And the feature that we're working on as well, which is soon to be announced, is also another example of that. And the great thing about projects, I should tell you, Ada, is that Jamaicans are not just here in Jamaica. Yes, we're 2.5 million here, but Jamaicans are all over the world. And we're seeing a lot of persons of Jamaican descent, whether in Hollywood, whether in Europe, coming out and saying, listen, we want to support our culture. How do we get involved? And so we're all about collaboration, bridging that gap between Caribbean people everywhere and the stories that we want to tell to the world. So we're really excited about how we can see even more of these sorts of collaborations take place.
Oh, awesome. Well, in terms of outlet, because outlets,
Yeah.
is it like a YouTube channel? I mean, where will that go? Because I mean, you don't have to go knocking on Hollywood's door begging them to produce a film and put it on
And
the
you
screen.
see what's happening right now with all the production studios, with all the distribution networks. It's a tenuous time to be in animation when you're working on independent content, because it does seem to be a sort of unsure, unclear space. But the beauty about YouTube, especially for, like, for instance, for the Cam project, is that preschoolers live on YouTube. YouTube Kids is a great place. I saw someone, Munia sent me a link just now. People are talking about how it's great for creating a love brand or a love mark, because you sort of fall in love with content on YouTube. So I encourage anyone, and this is the strategy that we're pursuing, is not to depend on other distribution channels that might be more gated, that might sort of be harder to break into, because YouTube is ubiquitous, it's accessible.
Yep.
And it's a place where you can demonstrate your audience. You can demonstrate, that you have a target, that you have your tribe. And then it gives you that validation and that credibility to then share that, with other platforms as well. So I think it's a great place for, for content that is sort of like us, or we're just now opening up to the world, for us to sort of make our name known. So yeah, I definitely endorse using YouTube as a first step in that direction.
Well, you all have been very, very inspiring in the work that you're doing in breaking through the barriers to pursue your passions and create content that is reflective of your culture, your people, your heritage. So I thank you all. Nadine, you want to send us out?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Well, first of all, Ada, thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to come on your platform, San Antonio Black Film Festival. Big up yourself.
Black International Film Festival, baby.
Thank you very much.
Get it right, Nadine. Get it right.
I know. And congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And giving us this opportunity to speak about our industry here in Jamaica, and by extension, the animation industry. And we look forward to watching this stream live or on whenever it's available.
Yeah,
and I look forward to more conversations like this, maybe in another genre soon.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I thank all of you all, because Nadine, you pulled together a wonderful cast. I say cast, repertoire of animators and creatives in Jamaica. And I want to thank you all for all that you do, because just putting your culture and your voice, your stories, your perspectives is so critical for those little ones looking at it, looking up.
Sure.
And I just want to say kudos to you all, and just continue the good work. And I'm looking forward to connecting and seeing more things out on the World Wide Web, because that's the only way we can connect right now.
Yeah.
I can't go to Jamaica every week to go on the beach and listen to, whatever. I got to catch it virtually. But thank you all, and you all take care.
All right. Thank you.